Oh, we're live.
Morning, Shabazz.
Morning, morning. What up, Kent?
How's it going?
Man, good, man. Hey,
Live.
we're
So
live.
there's
We're
not
live.
like it. There's not like an SNL like 5 second
No, so
edit window.
if you if you start saying swear words,
It's
then
real.
it's
It's
just gonna
happening.
be what it is.
All right.
um, hey, man. So I just tell you, like, I started these conversations because I really was just looking to sort of sit down with people that I admire, that I respect, that I have something to learn from, and people that I haven't really connected to in a while. And you were kind of on the list for a lot of those things. So, um, not the admire part.
Oh,
I'm joking.
burn,
I
burn.
no, I'm joking. I admire you a lot.
Where's
Uh,
the exit? Where's the exit button here?
oh man. No, I admire. I definitely admire you a lot, and the things that you've built here in Nashville. And we used to work together, but it's been a while. And yeah, so we haven't checked in a while. So I was like, yo, let's do it. Let's do it
Let's do
here.
it.
So
Yeah.
what's up? What you
Well,
working?
and I admire you, so I'm gonna like do everything I can to deflect the conversation back to you and get you talking about what you're working on.
All right, well, you could try, but this is my fourth episode in, Ken. I'm a professional now.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you working on, man?
Well, maybe for context, so I run an agency called Confidant that Shabazz knows well. That's a creative agency. We work with brands, um, and so there's probably new stuff we're working on, and in some ways, there's probably just like you know, it's a new day, but same old shit. Which I mean, in terms of the work that we're doing, we have some like steady brands we work with, Sony, Amazon, Firestone, that kind of stuff. But
It should be
what?
it should be said though that like you run the biggest little shop in Nashville. Like you are doing sort of globally award-winning work, and like you're such a little tiny capsule, which is why I was so in love with the thing that you were building, because Nashville has a few agencies. A lot of them are doing sort of local and regional work. You are sort of doing work all globally. You're doing global work from this little office, which just shows the kind of rigor and empathy that you bring to the work that you're doing. So I just wanted to, since you were giving some context, I just want
Yeah,
to add that to it
yeah,
too.
which is fun. I mean, it's an interesting era to be in where a lot of the barriers that used to be there working with big brands are no longer. And I on the flip side of that, like specifically what we're working on, we've just done a couple pitches in the last couple weeks. I won't probably shouldn't say who the brands are, but
Pitching, always pitching.
which is as much as it's great because there's less barriers to entry in the creative world, and you can work with big brands. You still feel like you live and die by like the next pitch and live and die by the next idea. And to be honest, that's pretty exhausting. Like I don't know how many industries that paradigm is at play, where you have to give so much just to get the job. Oh, hey, Kurt, familiar face here. So yeah, I think there's something interesting about there's lots of industries where you're asked to do like a proposal of like how much is this thing going to cost that you're building a house, here's what we want to do, here's the square footage, like here's the proposal. But there's so much in the advertising industry that we have to do that is the job that you do to get the job. And so you're catching me at a time where, we're waiting on a couple decisions on a couple pitches that we've been in. And as much as it's awesome that we can get in with great brands, it's also just exhausting how much we give to get, which I'm genuinely interested in all the people out there who work for creative agencies. I always want to know, like, how much are you guys pitching? How much sort of free thinking are you giving? Are we over giving? Are we, and especially when we give a lot of creative thinking and we don't win, like, what in the world did the next guy show? Because I know we showed some pretty great stuff. So
Yeah.
that's been heavily on my mind recently, professionally. I'll pause there, but there's some other things that cross over between professional and personal that I can also talk about.
I should also say that you come in razor sharp. You are very generous when you pitch. You're very generous, and you come in with really razor sharp ideas. And I've just always been impressed by your ability to keep it concise, but also to keep it very generous. So I think that's fly. I'm glad that you're working. You're waiting on a couple of things. What's up? Did you bring some show and tell? You got some show and tell? Or are you going?
Well, I did. That's a good segue to
Okay.
the personal side.
All right. Give me the
Which
show.
is which the personal and the professional is they're intertwined, so it crosses over. But
Probably more than we want.
yeah, and I was like, I don't know, what does show and tell mean? Do I need to like bring my like seventh grade baseball trophy or something like that? But so I don't have a physical object to show, but
Okay, what you got?
um, this is a very meta thing, but I've been doing the Substack thing, and I think
Yes.
around the time when you started doing the Substack thing, uh, you know, and I'm gonna shout out a couple people who are here in the room right now, but I was talking to Kurt Schmidt, who is an awesome business coach, and he really encouraged that, yeah, like you have things to say in the world, and
Yep.
it's a good way to be connecting in a personal way and a good way to be connecting in a professional way.
Yep.
Um, and I also see Michael Chena here, who I love his Substack. If you're not following
Ooh.
Michael, you got to check him out. So I have to say, I was reading his stuff, reading your stuff, Shabazz, and I think like I've only done 3 articles. I'm getting ready to put out my 4th one. But what's been really awesome is, I think it's really helpful to process through writing, first
Mhm.
of all. So whether or not people even read what you're writing, it's actually like the act of writing is a powerful thing in terms of like trying to articulate what you want out of life and
Yep.
relationships and all that. So that's been really fun from a writing standpoint. Um, it's a little nerve-wracking to put your writing out in front of people, which Shabazz, you're like the best at that. You're able to just be very open with the world, and I think hitting the submit button is not the easiest thing for me because it's it's sort of a forced function to allow what I'm thinking and processing to be something that everyone can be in on in a way. But what's been amazing is when you do it, I get the most amazing notes from people that people I went to college with that I haven't talked to for 20 years, or people that I used to work with, or people, it's really interesting who shows up. And in a way, when I've gone out and just like had a drink with a friend or something like that, it almost feels like the conversation is richer because they have sort of read this stuff going on, and we can kind of get more real faster, which
Mm.
has been really fun. The other person as a shout out who's inspired me is Eric Ryan Anderson. If you're not reading his Substack, that's been
Ooh,
really, really fun to see what he's up to. He's an amazing photographer. So
I did not know that Eric had a Substack. I gotta go find him.
yeah.
Man,
So
I think
that's
I'm
my
sure
show
that.
and tell. My Substack
Okay,
is
wait,
like
show it.
a
No,
thing.
you didn't do any showing.
Oh, okay.
Showing involves showing, Ken.
All right. All right.
No, but why you're pulling that up? I just want to sort of like co-sign what you're saying. Like, I jumped off of Instagram. I mean, I still have it as a thing, but I sort of jumped off of there because I was finding that my repetitive, compulsive watching of what was happening was getting out of control in my life. And as an artist, you go up there and you sort of post something, and then everybody likes something, and then it creates this like cycle of cheap dopamine hits that really, I don't know, that just kept me on that loop. And while I still have it, I still have it, and Instagram. It's definitely, I have like a thing on my phone. What is it called? It's called Opal. It's called
Hmm.
Opal. And it's sort of just like it blocks me out from using it at certain times of the day. I've only got like 5 minutes. I only got 5 minutes. I can only like look at it twice, even for 10 seconds. So I've locked it down, and then I've blocked it. I've like locked it and blocked it on so many different ways to like keep it out. But like, but I also still, it's still a device for getting to know each other. So I still have it. But I've just like really locked it down. And
Yeah.
it's been a lot more fun to sort of jump in on this long form writing on Substack. And I don't know who cares what I'm writing, but I'm just like, I don't know. I'm sharing.
Yeah. Well, I care. Side note for the show and tell. For some reason, rather than using my typical browser, I'm using Perplexity's Comet, and it's not letting me share my screen.
Well,
So, Shabazz, I'm going to put the link, or at least it's going to make me leave
okay.
Substack. So, um,
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
sent you the link if you want to open it.
okay. Well, I got it. I'm about to. I'm tapping in on you. Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah, it feels really weird to be like doing a Substack call and doing a show and tell of Substack. It's just
About
like,
Substack.
is something gonna
It's
implode or
web
something?
Substack. Let's see what I got here. Uh,
I mean, here's what I'll say as you're pulling it up. So one of the things um, that that's prompted me to be writing is I think in the last year I've been sensing a bit of a sort of new chapter. And so I called it Confidant Curiosities, which was really wanting to sort of exercise just like new possibilities. And it made sense to it was our 10-year anniversary last year as an agency. So this one here, it made sense to go back to the beginning and talk about like the original pitch that really made us, which got into winning Sony's audio business, which we've worked with Sony for 10 years now. And really mining just like how did that shape us, and how did that make us who we are today. A couple of the other ones get into we recently made the decision last year to focus in for the future on before now it used to be that we were like half the agency was from a like creative and brand standpoint, the other half which was what I do, and the other half was sort of PR and earned media. And so that was another thing that I really was processing in the last year of those two disciplines felt like they were maybe creating some confusion in the market. And so in the future, I just feel like there's so many small creative agencies. There's so many changes in the way brands, how loyal brands are to the agencies they work with. There's changes with AI. And so we made the decision last year to break into two, and basically Confidant continues as a focused creative agency, which is what I'm doing. And our PR team, who's an amazing team, who we love, we're very tight with, but they separated out into a different agency that's called Catamaran. But that, so to be able to process sort of publicly through Substacking about like, how did we start? What are we all about? Like, what's our secret sauce? What's our focus? And like, how do we own that focus going forward? It's very tied as like a professional question, but honestly, it's a deeply personal question, because I've really been looking at, like, I've been in the industry for 25 years and things are changing, and like some change is good, some change you resist, but like, what do I want the rest of my career to look like? What do I want to focus on moving forward? You know, so that's
Yo,
been like powerful processing.
can we parachute in on this for a second? Because I think that this is, this does get to the second, what are you working on right now, which in your own vibe, your own personal growth. And there's so much to hear. Like, I want to ask you about, when do you, like, there's a lot of people here, entrepreneurs that like start businesses, and like, when do you know when it's time to split? Like, that's, and I know that you're still working together closely, but like, when do you decide to do that? And I'm curious about that. And I'm curious about the changes in the industry as well. And finally, I'm curious about what your answer is in terms of like what your how do you look at this from a sort of spiritual perspective? So I'll start with that first question, which is like, how did you know it was time to say, hey, we're too big, let's split, you do your PR thing, I do my advertising thing, which is a very unique situation. Like, how did you know it was time to, hey, let's separate?
I mean, I think part of it was it being our 10-year anniversary last year. We, as an agency, we were going to do a trip where we were all going to go to Charleston, South Carolina, and have this 10-year anniversary celebration, which we did. And part of that naturally was going to be let's talk about like all the goods and all the wins and all the things that have brought us to this point of this 10-year anniversary. But we definitely were also like, we should probably have some refined vision for the future. And what, so Garland Harwood is the co-founder who he and I were grappling together with, just like, what do we want to present as the future? And we both said, you know what, it feels like we should both independently write our own vision of the future. And I just felt like it's sort of overwhelming for me to have to edit my vision to see if it fits your vision.
Yeah.
There's like it's already like we're leading the witness if we both are sort of editing ourselves for what we think the other wants to hear. And so we were like, let's both be really selfish about like, and this will segue to the next question, which is like, what are the changes coming? But we were like, there's enough change coming in the creative industry and in sort of every discipline of marketing. So PR, there's enough change coming in that side, that let's both be incredibly selfish about our own vision. And then let's compare those and let's figure out where they intersect and where they diverge, basically. And so that's what we did. We both like really put pen to paper. This was this time last year. It was like, April, May. because ultimately we all got together in June for the 10-year anniversary. And so we went through that. We both had business coaches. Like I said, Kurt Schmidt was who I was connecting with, who was really helping process like personal goals, sort of strengths, weaknesses, things that are changes coming, like just really looking at all the different filters. And so I think it just became really clear when we compared all that, like in some ways it felt like this is not a good time. In other ways it felt like we've kind of known some of these things that are like things that I want to address that I've not been able to address, or that I've like pushed under the rug, and things that he's wanted to address that he's pushed under the rug. And so I think there was an element of like, it's actually easy to keep the status quo and sort of like, if nothing's like, actually it's worth saying we have such an amazing relationship personally, as Garland and I, as well as our teams have such a good relationship, that you don't want to mess with that. You're kind of like, it's not really harming any of us to be together.
Yeah.
But I think as we looked in the future, we're like, but ultimately, if your focus is not there, any like textbook will tell you it actually is harming you in the long run, because there's so many different agencies, there's so many different people that a brand can pick up and call, that if you're not being clear about what you're about and when they pick up and call, then it actually is doing damage in the long run. And I think where we started to look into the future, we're like, we happen to live in an area where there's an explosion of small creative companies. And there are way less barriers for household brands to go work with these very small creative companies. And we have been the beneficiary of that for the last 10 years. We've been able to work on work that feels like these household name brands as a small agency. But that trend, I think, catches up with you where it's like, well, yeah, so there's lots of competition for that work now. And so I think it just became like almost like unavoidable that if we're being like intellectually honest, with ourselves, we have to look at like, if we are wanting a 10-year anniversary inflection point, we can't not talk about this, and we can't not like sort of lean into it. And so that's what we did. We embraced it.
It's really brave that you guys could kind of look into your status quo and really decide to do a change. I mean, like you're not some run of the mill company. Like you guys are serious deal running huge brands and, you know, working really large campaigns, really big work. And so to take this as a step forward seems really brave to me. My next question is just about like, I've been, as you know, I've been like really kind of keeping my toe in advertising, but I sort of left it, you know. I used to know everything about everything. I used to be super tapped in, but now I don't. What are the changes that you're experiencing? You know, like you know, when I was in the industry, I guess I stopped in 2020. You know, the last time. I mean, I've done freelance and stuff since then. You know, writing some scripts for people and stuff. But you know, like what's changed? I mean, there's AI now. There's I don't know. You know, social. You know, Instagram isn't the only big social media player anymore. There's subsets. What's changing? What are the changes that the writing on the wall for you that shows you that, you know, advertising is, you know, the industry is changing?
One thing you just said, by the way, I know everything. I knew everything about everything. It reminds me of the Kendrick Lamar lyric. I knew everything about everything, and then I realized I didn't know shit. Sorry, it was going through my head as you were saying that. So I think I think moving forward, Yeah, I mean, I think for you, like I've worked with you. I met you as an artist. So when you moved to Nashville, you're this incredible visual artist. You and have your hands in all kinds of areas in the fine arts. And when I found out you had some history in the advertising industry, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And we had an opportunity, Shabazz and I, we worked together for a year or so uh, before COVID, right? It was like the year before COVID. Um, and uh, which was amazing. And to this day, just some of the best work came out of that period of working together. Honestly, I mean, it was amazing. Um, I think for you, like um, embracing the fine arts, embracing some of these other endeavors that you had brewing, it made total sense to me. You're so like multi hyphenate that um, you have the ability to create new chapters for yourself, which I think is like amazing. And when I look at the way you've done that, I'm like, it almost seems like on one hand there's like this inevitability that you are going to be like a heat-seeking missile onto these like next creative lives that you create for yourself. I think for me it's a much harder question, like what are the things that you like, that I like and dislike about the creative and advertising industry? Like um there's plenty that I like, there's plenty that I don't like, and there's plenty after 25 years of it that you feel like, you know, the things that I don't like, why do they still rear their head so often? And so, but the question of like um sort of living in the what you do and you don't like, and I'll get into what those things are. And especially right now with like some of the changes, like you mentioned AI, like there's things that are happening in the way advertising is evolving that I don't love, like
Like
I
what?
think
What? Like what, Ken?
okay, so I think there's a lot of people who, if you're in advertising, and I'll speak for myself, the attraction is that, you get to you get to take these brands that for whatever reason have meaning to people, and you get to go into the heart of like what gives this brand meaning,
Mm.
and how do I help connect that meaning to people, and like how do I connect it to culturally things that are happening right now. And so I think there's like these layers to advertising. It's like it is a creative endeavor, but it has like a cultural connective side of it, and it has almost like sort of a psychology side to it, where if you ask any creative in the advertising industry, like what's one of the things you love about it, it's a lot of people will say problem solving. And to an outsider, they might be like, what does that even mean, problem solving? Like it's just, there's an ad that I either watch or I don't watch. But like the problem solving is there's actually there's a lot of different opinions within these brands about what this brand is, and
Mm.
what makes it appealing, and like what is its reason for even existing, what products make sense for it to be making, and who are they, who's sort of the natural audience for this thing that they're making. And so there's something that's always been fun to me about the fundamental like problem solving aspect of like what gives this thing meaning and how do we make it relevant. And I think there's also the idea that within brands, there's so many people with different opinions about what should happen next. I actually do like straight up just working with people who have different opinions, and like there's a certain like diplomacy to just like which is like a nerdy word probably, but to coming in and just helping a lot of people who, you know, for good or for bad, a lot of people who work at brands, like they're under a lot of pressure and they lose a lot of sleep over their day job, and it gives them a lot of meaning or it gives them a lot of stress. And so there's something on a deeply personal level of to be able to come in and like, I always think of it as like walk into the quicksand with these
Yeah.
people and try and make their lives better. Like if they can succeed and we can succeed, that's actually, there's like, I think if you're making art, you can do whatever you want, in a way. But like, I think if you're working for brands, you are being commissioned by them, and you want to do something that's creative, that finds meaning. But you also want to, at least in my world, I want to serve people well. I want them to feel like we helped them through something that was actually hard to get through. And so I think that's what I love about what I do.
Yeah. And you, by the way, I just want to, earlier I said that, you know, there's like empathy in the work. And this is the reason why, what you've described, that, you know, you have a great deal of empathy when you're working with people, just kind of an understanding and, you know, very generous with them in that way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay.
What I don't like.
Tell me what you don't like.
I think the whole rise of social media, and even more so the onset of AI, is built, in my opinion, around a constancy of like any brand or person needing to have almost like a constancy of short output for short attention spans. And so, and we're all, you know, I look at social media as a consumer, and, you know, obviously we're all sort of in this of just like, we are trying more so than ever to help brands break through to people who are just even more flooded.
Doing business.
Sorry.
Doing business in the middle of
no. My screen went to sleep, so I'm glad you're still here. So I think that, if I'm honest, it feels like what we're making has just become more disposable. And obviously, people can skip commercials, people can scroll past what you're doing. And the problem solving side of me is like, well, the medium changes, so you lean into the cultural norm and the new media, and you just say, make it work in shorter durations, make it stand out quicker, make more of it, and just lean into like the essence of existing in any industry is to evolve into the norms of the day.
Yeah.
And so,
you know, it's interesting. Like, my philosophy was always, if it doesn't inspire you to get a tattoo, it's not like good enough yet.
mm-hmm.
And like, that's sort of like my benchmark. It's somebody's got to want to tattoo something that's being said, an image that's being showed on their body. But with this short snackable content, you know, maybe that's a harder ask, you know, because I think that something happens today and there's an expectation for us to make content in relationship to that trend that might pop up for 6 months and now it's gone. And so maybe my old benchmark doesn't work anymore. You know, maybe this is sort of like this is my old man benchmark on advertising, you know?
Yeah, I want to listen to records. I don't want to listen to singles. But I think I think, I mean, we're doing it. We're evolving. You know, plenty of what we're doing is, you know, creating more volume, faster punch. So you know, we're all doing it. I think there are instances, there are people out there, brands and agencies who are actually doing great long form content, and I always wonder. Yeah, I sincerely want to know if any of you out there are having a lot of success with long form brand content. I want to know, like, how is that being asked for? Is it being asked for from the brand, and where does it live? You know, I think there's a few who are doing like full on like Netflix shows that are done in partnership with brands, and that's cool. That's like a counter move against the disposability of content, and that's awesome. Um, but you know, at the same time, not every brand is going to ask you for that, and or you could pitch till you're blue in the face a show for Netflix, and a lot of brands just won't go there. You know.
I also sort of wonder if like there's something beautiful about this sort of snackable size content that we live in. And that like, hey, I can make it, I put it there, and if it's great, it's great. If it's not, it's not. But I wonder if the companies the brands that you're working with are keeping this sort of old school accountability of like, this has got to be the perfect thing for 10 years for content that they're only running for 10 weeks. You know, like I wonder if that sort of, if the experimentation, sort of incremental, try fail, try succeed type thinking is actually seeping into their expectations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it is. I mean, I think we're there with that. I think when we get down to just like, as I look into the future, for me from a personal standpoint, I'm like, I'm kind of living in this reality of like, I loved the sort of like, I've always loved the deeper thinking of brand positioning, and you know, like creative with the capital C, of like, you know, these big campaigns, these big moments in time that brands make. And I'm trying to coexist in that sort of like history that I've had while balancing it with like, but a lot of times we're being asked to do a lot of littles, and we do that, and it's almost like, but I don't know of any like creatives who love the idea of like all this work that you're putting into things just being more disposable. I think at the heart of it, if I really get to just like what I just have some like resistance against, is like, yeah, we'll do it because that's what consumers are engaging with. But it just is like, how do we find ways to just like make things that just don't feel disposable, which is what you're saying with the you know, it's not great unless somebody wants a tattoo of it. I mean, you know, yeah, that's a tall order. So
I think there's a brand that I really love that is doing it really well, and it's this stupid coffee shop, the Brooklyn coffee shop. Have you seen this? And they come in and they ask for a coffee, and we don't serve coffee, we serve. And they can't get it. It's like a series. It's like a sort of a mini series where they're really kind of just re-looking at how to use the platform in different kinds of ways. I think ultimately like we're gonna like we'll find a way to love this thing. I mean, when I came into the business, it was like all about non-traditional advertising. Now you say it's like, what is that?
yeah,
But hey,
people still ask for that, but they rarely go for it. Actually,
they don't go for it anymore.
They want it.
They want it, but they don't know what they're. Hey, okay, listen. All right, before I let you go, because we've been going for 39 minutes. If you coming back to your 10-year anniversary, like, did you in 10 years from now, like, what do you want to see your career as? And I think that, like, I'm asking both, like, as a professional thing, but I'm also asking, like, from a personal thing. I really love what you're saying. Like, you're not just looking at, like, oh, what's successful for you? What's going to make the best company? You're like, what do I want to do with my life? And so I'm really curious about that. Like, where have you set the course for you, in 10 years from now? Like, what do you hope to be doing?
Man, that is, yeah, that's a tricky question. To be honest, I find myself thinking in almost like 3-year increments. I know we're supposed to think in 10-year increments, but this is sort of the disorientation of like the AI fear thing that's out there, which is just like when you feel how much things have changed in the last 2 to 3 years, like how can I project 10 years forward? But so anyway, I would say like whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I would love to find myself in a place where I think this idea of coming into brands and like helping solve problems, like I almost like, I mean, we're called confidant, so there's an element where I'm like, at some point, it would be really nice to just like have deeper relationships with brands where we're coming in just, or I personally can come in on just almost like a more like interpersonal, um, like what's keeping you up at night and almost like beyond just like what's the creative need of the day. Um, like it would be cool to almost be like a therapist for brands. like let's just sit down and like you process like all the issues that you're having and there's no like foregone conclusion to what the answer is to those problems, but like there's something to me, I mean in 10 years I'll be, I'm in my late 40s, so I'll be in my late 50s, so there's like something appealing to me about coming in a more holistic way that's like more almost like seismic than like what's your next like ad campaign you want to do or next like brand initiative you want to do, which I don't know what that means, but like it feels like at some point it's nice to come in like in the later stages of your career and come in on a really like deeply human connecting purpose level of like how do we tackle the things that are like actually really stressing you out and try and like make them just clean those up. So that's something that I think would be nice at some future stage.
And what do you want to be doing, like, at home, if it's your, like, with yourself?
Oh man, I mean 10 years my kids will be out of college, which is crazy. I have middle schoolers, and so that too is like wild to think about. I mean, I would love to go live in Spain, honestly. Like we've done some extended trips to Spain in recent years, and so yeah, I have all these images of the future of you know being in Europe. I also always play music, so there's a picture to me of just really connected with people, um, more travel, more music, um, which I could see sort of in 10 years. So
All right. Well, Ken, I wish I can't believe we talked for all this time. We didn't talk anything about music until the very end, which is such a weird because I know how much of a musician you are. But
maybe next time.
Next time we'll have to dig into it. We talk a lot about brand stuff. This is the most like brand centric conversation I've had on these, but I like digging into it with you. You have such a pleasant way to talk about this stuff. So thanks for getting into it and telling us more about Confidant and even what's happening with Catamaran and how that sort of evolution has been going. And I think there's a lot of people that can resonate with that. We've got a lot of brand people in here, so that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I love connecting as always, and anybody who is willing to sit through this much of me talking, you know, I'm going to send you like a gift certificate or something.
You heard it. If you get to this part of the conversation,
hit me up.
Email Ken. He's sending you a gift certificate.
Yeah, tell me if you made it to the end, and I'm going to send you a gift certificate. I'm not going to say to what, but I'm going to say to
something. All right, love you, bro. Peace.
Yeah, catch you later.